Hi guys, just getting started here in a second.
Hey everyone, we didn't do our check yet, so we have no idea how we look yet, but do you have your computer around?
My computer?
Yeah. Where is it?
I don't need my computer.
To plug it in. I'll go grab it.
Episode 20 is this? What episode is this?
20.
20, and we're still not 100% locked in on the setup, but that's all part of it.
Yeah. Here, if you just open up your computer, then you can. We got a little bit turned around tonight, guys. Thanks for your patience. We'll get started here in just a second. One moment. Getting set up. Just open your computer and then plug.
My computer doesn't have this.
Oh, it doesn't? Oh, okay. Well, we're still getting this set up. Thanks for your patience, guys. We're not anticipating both of our phones being low on battery. Hopefully you guys are laughing with us. I got some fun new things set up over here. Get that extra glass out of there. Some pumpkins, fun things set up. Hopefully you guys can see them on Instagram. Those are really fun. So we're gonna grab that Thunderport converter and then we should be good to go. Hopefully you guys are having a great night. We're gonna be talking about why if we should care about what other people think about us and how they view us. So I'm really excited for this episode. And we're gonna, like I said, get started in just a second. If you are joining us either on Instagram or on Facebook, let us know where you're tuning in from. We would love for you guys to, I'm not quite on the Instagram one. We would love for you guys to comment with that and interact with you in that way. If you have any questions as we go along, of course, and comments, we welcome those as well. So I hope you guys are having a great Sunday night. And it's a little bit awkward. I have to kind of lean over for the Instagram. But we'll get started here in just a second. Were you able to find it? Oh, okay. Well, you can just borrow some of mine for a second. We'll just alternate the charging. Here, plug your phone into that one then. We'll just get this alternated there. Okay, perfect. Where did you put the fit stick? Okay.
Good stuff so far. All right, Hannah, thanks for joining. Thanks for joining, Rachel. We're just getting going here in a minute.
All right, cool. Well, we are set. I've got my fizz stick here now, so I'm happy camper. Can you move the camera a little bit so that it can show, so I don't have to lean over for Instagram? All right, awesome. Well, tonight, like I said, we're talking about, should we care what other people think about us and how they view us? And I think that's really important to talk about. And so we're gonna just talk about some different thoughts regarding that. We would love for your comments and, like I said, and questions as we go along with this. Oh, go ahead.
Well, part of it I think too is, it's something that a lot of people struggle with. I know I've certainly struggled with is, what people think about what we're doing, a particular thing that we're working on, or just in general, what people think about us as individuals. So I think too, defining a little bit what people we're talking about. I mean, there's different groups that you kind of associate with that you're going to care a little bit more or less. You have, your family, your friends, then maybe
right.
You have maybe a church family, then you have maybe your colleagues, and it can go out from there, your peer group. So I think, sometimes, some of those people or those groups are going to have a little bit different weight depending on what group they reside in, on how much we care about what that particular person or group of people think about us. But it's definitely something we struggle with.
Absolutely. And I think this really begins with a comparison, I think we look at other people's lives and then we start comparing, right? We do this kind of like, you look like that, and how does that line up with how I look? And I know we've talked about comparison before, but you know, it honestly, you know, if you're a person of faith, and you're looking at, you know, how God made you and created you, it's a little bit of an insult to say, hey, no, God, you messed this up. You gave this person this talent, and I actually deserve that talent. And you know, those things aren't always lining up. We want to have what another person has, instead of just appreciating who we are and how we were created. And somebody may look at us and think a certain thing, or we may look at somebody else and think a certain thing, and thus we kind of get these certain opinions. You know, we're looking in a mirror and we're thinking, how does everyone else in my life view this particular outfit, or view how I'm looking right now, instead of looking at ourselves and going, is this how I want to look, and is this what God would see as wonderful and beautiful? And that's all that matters, right? And so I think kind of starting there and thinking about how comparison really plays a big factor into this, because we are often trying to read the minds of other people and comparing our lives to theirs.
Yeah, for sure. I think what you talked about there with the image, the self-image, I think is really important. That we really have to get to a point where we're doing things for our own identity and who we're trying to be. And sometimes that's going to, if you're in the middle of changing, you know, a particular aspect of who you are, you're trying to get better, then that can rub people the wrong way. And that's kind of what we're talking about here is then if we bump up against a group of people or a person who doesn't like the change we're making, then that's where it can we can pull back into conforming to that previous identity, or what that person wants us to be.
Right.
And that's kind of one of the I think the main thing that people struggle with is making that jump from who you were to who you're trying to be. Right. And that group of people, sometimes, you know, it's friends or family, you know, aren't comfortable with that, whatever that is, or they're kind of pulling us back. And that's kind of where you see in a lot of changes, when people are trying to make a big change.
Yeah.
You know, they have a first burst. We even see it in people becoming a Christian. You have a first burst of energy. You're excited about the change.
Right.
And then kind of the first 30 days, or depending on, it might be different, but then you kind of see a pullback where that fire kind of gets dampened by the people around them not liking exactly that change that they're making. And that can be kind of where they end up, you know, you see people end up giving up or quitting because of that group of people are pulling them back to their previous state.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you think about it, you know, the analogy of the crabs, you know, people want to pull you down to where they are because that's where they're comfortable living. And so with living a No More Somedays lifestyle, it really takes a willingness to put aside what people may or may not be thinking about you. And that, I think, really begins with comparison and putting away those old things for the new. And it takes a lot of grit to do that. And I think we kind of exhaust ourselves, I think, is another thing that when I was trying to think through some of the things that I know I've struggled with when it comes to, you know, caring about what other people think about me and my self-image, and how that lines up, or image according to others, is, you know, we waste a lot of energy trying to figure out what other people may or may not be thinking about us. Or we waste a lot of time and energy thinking about something that they said that may not have even been meant a certain way, or where they could be very innocently wanting to somehow help you or protect you or whatever it is. But that comment, we allow that comment to kind of eat away at us and keep us from doing what we know we're supposed to be doing. And it's sort of like, you know, they're sincerely wanting to help us, but they're sincerely wrong in the sense that they're not lining up with what our goals are. It doesn't mean that they're bad or anything like that. It just means that their goals aren't quite lining up, and their view of the world isn't quite lining up with what you're trying to do with the No More Somedays lifestyle, for example.
Yeah, and I think there's a couple things there. First, you know, everybody, we all bring our own experience to the table, and so people can speak to your point from their perspective into your life,
Right.
and what they're saying may be true, and maybe they did have a bad experience
Exactly.
with whatever. If you're wanting to change jobs, maybe they had a bad experience in that field. And so while their experience is 100% correct, they're speaking from theirs into your
Right,
life. And
right.
so that's where we have to develop the confidence that we have to believe in ourselves and have the confidence that we're making the right decision. And that's also where I think we have to have filters on, you know, when we're gonna speak something, when we're gonna tell somebody about our goals or our plans. We have to really be careful.
Yeah.
And you know, you don't have to tell everybody everything that you're doing.
Right, right.
Sometimes we like to be, you know, we get excited about something, and sometimes even more, at least in my life, what I've been searching for, I've wanted validation from other people
Right.
that to give me their approval. But you really have to be careful about what you're saying to certain people, and really be selective with who you're telling certain things to. And you know, your dreams don't have to be open necessarily for everybody.
Right.
Or
You don't have to allow people to speak into your life as big if they're not somebody that's a safe person
Sure.
to be able to do that with. Because even if somebody's close to you, they may not share your same values, they may not share your same experiences. And so you want to be careful with that. Like maybe they don't want to have a second home or something like that, like we do. And so, you know, even if we did mention that to them, for example, you know, we don't want their experience or their opinion to speak as large into our vision for our life.
Yeah, just taking that example, somebody can, again, that's not, you know, that's just a dream that we have. But let's say we were talking about it to some people, and they said, "Oh, that's really risky, isn't it? That'd be really risky. How are you going to deal with 2 mortgages, or how are you going to?" Well, even that little bit of fear, then you can see in this example how if we allow that fear to affect us, and oh, well, maybe that is a bad goal. Maybe we shouldn't be doing that. Maybe that is a dumb idea. We need to make sure we have more savings, or only have one. You know, it can just go on, and then you're off track before you even got on track. You know, because we're not close to getting a second home. You know, and that's just a goal that we have. And even before we're really on that journey, we've already, you know, said, oh, that must be a bad idea.
Right.
And that's one example, but I think you can see how that would apply to almost anything, where if you let people put fear into certain dreams that you have or goals, then you can start getting into your own head and unravel before you even get started. But going back to another thing you said about, you know, thinking about getting in other people's heads, you know, and trying to figure out what is so-and-so thinking about me, what are they, like, a lot of times, again, that's just us. Like, people don't really care. I mean, people have their own things to do, not that they don't care, but they have their own lives to live. And, you know, we're so concerned about that, and it really doesn't matter to them.
Right.
And so we have to, again, get out of our own heads, and, you know, just not let that allow us to detract us from what we're trying to do, and thinking we're really kind of, in a way, making us more important than we are. And I don't know if some of that originates from, you know, we all kind of think we're the center of the universe.
Yeah. We think about us the most, right?
Right. Yeah. And we're really not. People have their own lives to do, and own problems, and own goals they're working on.
Yeah, and I mean, just take a look at like your own head, you know, like how often are you thinking about what other people are doing or not doing and forming an opinion? I mean, you may sometimes, but the majority of the time you're thinking about yourself, right? You're thinking about what you need to do, your family's needs, what's coming up, etc. So, yeah, don't allow what somebody may or may not be thinking about you to detract from your goals and dreams, and that's something that, you know, is huge, I think. Oh, go ahead.
I actually had a question for you. So, what happens, or what advice would you give people when, you know, it's one thing to deal with, you know, even your church community or your peers, and they don't like what you're doing. How do you deal with something when it's somebody a lot closer, like a family member or a close friend, who isn't really on board with what you're doing? How do you kind of navigate that?
Yeah, I mean, again, I think it depends on the goal. So, like, if it's something where, for example, with my business, that's always a tough thing, you know? And so, not everybody is approving of that, even in my inner circle. So, sometimes it's meant that some people have kind of walked out of my life, and they're not so close anymore, and we don't really talk very much because they're just not, approving of that kind of business that I've taken part in. And then other people, you know, it's taken them a while. So when I felt down about my business, or when I felt down about something with regards to my field of work, I try to go to somebody who has more belief and who has more experience. And so if I am having a down moment, I try to share that more closely with people who are like coaches in my life, specific to Arbonne, for example. Or if it's something with like having 2 homes, I've tried to talk more about that with people who I know like either have 2 homes or are working toward that themselves, or listening to podcasts that are along those lines, and hearing examples of people who've made that possible in their own life. So I think there's ways to kind of supplement that. It doesn't mean that you never tell the people that are like you're in your inner circle, hey, I have this dream or I have this goal. But depending on who it is and where they are, it may change. You know, some people in my life, you know, have kind of, it's taken them a while, but they've kind of come around to, for example, like my work or our goal of having 2 homes, or I'm trying to think of like some other things that have been kind of like, you know, us moving here was kind of a hard thing. You know, just different things like that, there's decisions that we've made, and not everybody that's super close to us is like super excited the way that we are about those decisions. But usually the people that are really close to you hopefully really love you, and they are really, they desire the best for you, and they want you to be happy. And so in a lot of those cases, that's what's ended up happening, is that they've come around and they want you to be happy, and they want to support you. And so those people have supported me and loved me and lifted me up and helped me in the ways that they can, and have learned more and kind of come around, even if they weren't like super excited or gung-ho about those things at the beginning, because they want the best for you. And but sometimes it doesn't always work out that way, and I think that is something that's tough. But I think when you're on your deathbed, or however you want to think about it, you know, when you're sitting in your rocking chair and you're like 80 whatever, like I think you're gonna want to have been surrounded by people who want the same things, and you don't want that one person that may or may not be in your life to stop you from going after something. You know, that one person, or that, you know, those few people, is that really gonna matter, you know, in the end? Is that really gonna be like, oh, I'm so glad I pleased so-and-so and didn't go after that dream?
Right.
Like, no, I don't think, at least for me, that's not how I'm going to feel.
And I think that's why one question that we have to ask when we're talking to people or about to tell somebody a goal or dream is, why do you want their opinion on this? So is it, do you want their validation? Do you want their approval? Do you want them to think highly of you? Are you trying to impress them with that? You know, or are you really seeking some support or guidance? And so that's going to, if you can ask yourself that question, that's going to determine, maybe, am I really going to share this with this person? And then based on, you know, am I going to be okay with their, you know, what am I going to do based on their answer?
Right.
So if so-and-so tells me, you know, no, I shouldn't switch careers, does that mean, am I going to really stop it? Am I not going to do it? Or am I still going to proceed? So asking that question, what is their opinion? Why am I asking their opinion? Is really going to help, I think, filter that for you on what your next step is going to be, on whether you're going to share that with them, and then what are you going to do based on their answer. Because, you know, using your example, you know, if you're still going to go forward with your business based on their answer, then, you know, one, you may decide, well, I'm not going to share that if I think they're going to be negative, or it's going to lessen when you already know, okay, well, I'm still going to do this anyway. One, you kind of have this self-confidence in yourself, and then, like you said, you can go outside for additional support for people who you do know are going to support you. And are going to, you know, speak life into that vision that you have for yourself.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think you just have to find that balance. But I do love that idea of like, what is your motive in talking to this person? And, you know, also I think you have to go into those conversations sometimes with a little bit of like, you know, reserved kind of feeling. Like, they may not be as excited about that thing as you are, or they may not share your passion for that thing or whatever. And so you're going to have to find that passion, that belief, that excitement somewhere else. And that's okay. Like, you know, and just finding where can I gather that belief and that support somewhere else. until this person comes around, or maybe they don't come around. But you do have to be very careful with, what is my motive here? And what is this going to add or take away from the relationship? And also my own goals, my own personal goals. Another thing I was thinking about too was, we allow, by listening to somebody else and allowing that person to speak into our life and being a determining factor, we're allowing them to essentially determine our lives, like live our lives for us, when they're not living our life. And so that's another thing too, is, I kind of going back to my example earlier of, you're on your deathbed or you're sitting in your rocking chair. I think sometimes we allow other people to make these decisions for us instead of walking our own path and living our own life, because we're worried about their approval, or we're worried about how they're going to view us, or if we're going to be ostracized, or a myriad of other things. Maybe we think that they'll think we're stupid or whatever. And we allow that to determine the way that we choose to live our lives. And then, I'm thinking, okay, here I am 50 years down the road or whatever it is, and I'm looking back on my life, and I don't think I'm going to have that conversation with myself of like, oh, I'm so glad I listened to Sally Sue when she told me not to XYZ, and I played it safe, and I didn't go after that thing or whatever it was. I'm so glad I didn't do that. I'm so glad that I allowed other people to determine how I live my life. No, I think I'm going to feel regret. And I might even feel some frustration with Sally Sue. I'm just using that example. But because she recommended something, or she determined something, and I'm going to be frustrated because I took her advice instead of listening to what I knew and praying about what was going to be best for my life. So again, it's, it could be really easy to point at another person and be like, it's all your fault. But ultimately, it's our responsibility to live our own lives, to walk out what we know to be right. And what's going to be right for me is going to be different than other people, obviously. This is going to look different for everybody. But I think that's a really important thing, that if you look back through your life, try to have like those eagle eyes and look, 50, 60, 70 years down the road. What are you really going to care about? And are those people really going to be the determining factors in how you choose to live your life and how you choose to parent your children, or etc.? I mean, we could keep going. What kind of influences do you want to have?
Yeah, I mean, I think if they're not going to be there around, Sarah, we keep going to this deathbed. You'll think we just talk about death every episode, but if they're not going to be around you when you're taking your last breath, then their opinion probably isn't going to matter that much. But going back to what you were saying, I think it is about accountability, and I think a lot of times we want to be able to blame somebody for our mistakes,
right, and
for why we didn't get to do a certain thing, because that's the easier path to say, sure, oh, mom didn't let me do such and such, so it's her fault that I didn't go to become a lawyer, or right, dad he never let me play baseball, so it's his fault that I'm not a professional baseball player. And that's easy, when the truth is, if I wanted to be a lawyer, I could have put in the time and the work, and right, succeeded or failed on my own merit.
Right.
But it's easier to say, no, it was mom's fault 30 years down the road,
right,
and that's just easier. And I think, going back to the regrets of the, when you're looking back, just go Google top regrets of the dying, and on that list all the time, one of them is, I wish I would have taken more risks. I wish I would have pursued my dreams. I wish I would have gone after what I was passionate about.
Right.
Along with, spending more time with family, not working as much. Those things are, critical as well. But the other things are, not pursuing things that you knew in your heart, and that's a whole nother discussion. How do you know what to pursue? How do you know those things? But what you know that you should have been doing and what you should have pursued. I mean,
yep,
that's what people regret, and
yep,
that's what they wish they had another do over at. And while we believe that ultimately we're gonna be in heaven and those things aren't gonna matter, that doesn't mean we shouldn't pursue a well-lived life here. Mm-hmm. And we don't want I don't want to look back in, 100 years when I'm gone, having lived 130 years, that I would have pursued the things that I was passionate about and excited about.
Right.
So yeah, but I think, it goes back to being accountable for our decisions and living our lives, and not being a victim. And like you said, we're kind of handing over control of our life.
Yep. We're giving the remote control, we're giving the pen away of our lives to somebody else.
Yeah. And one of the things I think that have helped me when I've faced kind of some of those decisions is really looking at who are the people that I admire, that are living or have lived a life that I admire to some extent.
Right.
And really seeing that, when other people are speaking negatively about what I'm going after, or I just know they don't feel positively about it,
right.
Seeing those people that have done it, are doing it, and that I'm no different than them.
Right.
And they've been successful, so I can be successful.
Right. Yeah.
They went against the norm, so I can go against the norm. And a lot of times, unfortunately, those people may not be people I know. But what I've tried to do even more recently is, if it's somebody that's written a book that you admire, or somebody that has a podcast you admire, instead of saying, I listened to such and such podcast today, when you're talking even to yourself, you can say, Eric Thomas told me this today.
Yeah.
Mel Robbins told me this today. Whoever it is told me, because you're developing then a more personal relationship that's more relatable to you, and that you're going to be able to feel closer to and own more. Mm-hmm. And that's just, a tool that I'm trying to utilize in those things where I know that I'm getting a little bit of pushback on.
Yeah, actually, that reminded me of something really cool that you can do, and it's just it sounds a little bit out there, but it's actually really kind of a fun exercise where, like, you could imagine like a big boardroom, and you are at the front, you're at the head seat, and you're choosing who's going to be on your board. Mm-hmm. And it could be anything. It could be your spirituality board. It could be your your home board, whatever you want it to be. But people who are going to be at your right hand, who are going to be speaking into your life in this particular area. And I think that's really smart. And you can have it be people you don't personally know, like you were saying. You can choose anybody to be as a part of your board. And again, there too, you can say, if it's not one of these people on this board, their opinion does not matter to me. Because we're not saying that there's never a time where somebody else's opinion or what somebody's speaking into your life isn't going to matter. There are times where it's going to matter and you need to take a closer look at something. But we're specifically speaking about times where we know we're pursuing something that we prayed about, that is something that we know in our hearts is right for us, and we're allowing people that don't have a vested interest in that, who maybe whatever is going through their brains, maybe they've never seen it that way, they don't have a bigger vision, they feel like it's different than how they're living their lives, so they're judging you. Whatever it is, we're not allowing those other influences to affect what we've decided for ourselves is right. And I think it can be a really smart thing to just have this group of people that speaks into our whatever goal, our area of life. And then if it's not one of those people, it's not gonna, we're not gonna take that into consideration. And that can be another thing that you look at. Just if you want to kind of get a little more concrete, you could even write it out. You could write it out for every area of your life. But that's just something I thought of when you were talking that I think could be a really good exercise that I need to dive into more, I know myself. So did you have anything else that you wanted to?
I don't think so.
Well, we're almost right at 9:30, but if you guys have any questions or comments, we'd love to know what those are. Feel free to drop them below. As usual, please subscribe and share our YouTube channel, and feel free to share this video on Facebook or Instagram, wherever you are watching this. Also, we have an Instagram account. It's at No More Some Days with a Z. So definitely follow us there, and we just really appreciate you guys taking the time to pop on tonight.
Thank you guys for watching. Have a good week.
All right, good night, guys.